As above, so below comes from the Emerald Tablet, an ancient Hermetic text that wasn't meant to inspire you. It was meant to awaken you. It's the single most dangerous phrase in occult philosophy because it tells you the truth that every power structure fears. Everything is a mirror. The heavens mirror the earth. The divine mirrors the material. Your mind mirrors the universe. What happens on one level is not just connected to the other, it's the same damn thing playing out on different frequencies. That's not philosophy. That's physics. That's metaphysics. That's quantum sorcery. Listen to me, this phrase dismantles the idea of separation. There's no split between heaven and earth, body and soul, spirit and matter. The church wants you to believe in hierarchy. Science wants you to believe in randomness. As above, so below says screw all of that. There's no up and down. There's no higher or lower. Everything is correspondence. Everything is reflection. Everything is you. You want to know why elites, mystics, and ancient priesthoods obsessed over this one line? Because it's the skeleton key. You can't control people who know they are mirrors of the divine. You can't enslave someone who realizes their blood is made of stardust, that their breath is the breath of the cosmos, that their thoughts shape the very grid of the matrix we live in. This phrase isn't pretty, it's violent. It shatters illusions. It declares war on duality. It destroys the slave system that says you are here and God is there. Bullshit. If it's above, it's below. If it's in the sky, it's in your DNA. If it's in the cosmos, it's in your gut, in your hands, in your dreams. Now here's where it gets brutal. You think stars are just distant balls of gas? They're not. They're your ancestors. They're your blueprint. They are you stretched out across light years. Your body? It's not a meat suit. It's a sacred machine constructed to house stardust and consciousness. The cells in your bloodstream follow the exact same pattern as galaxies. The neurons in your brain spark like cosmic lightning. You think that's an accident? Hell no. This is macrocosm and microcosm mirroring each other like two sides of a blade. And that blade can either be used to cut through lies or to cut you off from truth. That's why they made sure you never learned this in school. That's why your pastor never preached it. That's why the Emerald Tablet was hidden, misquoted, misused. Because if you really get it, if it sinks into your bones, you realize something terrifying. There is no way out there. There's only in here. Everything you think is external is just projection. You are the projector. The world is the screen. Your internal state is the master key to external reality. That's not spiritual optimism. That's Hermetic law. If the world outside you is chaos, you better believe it's reflecting something inside you, and vice versa. As above, so below. As within, so without. And it goes deeper. Every war, every empire, every conquest was built on twisting this law. Rulers knew the power of correspondence. That's why they copied heaven on earth. Why temples aligned with stars. Why kings claimed divine right. They understood, if you control the above, you dominate the below. If you own the narrative of the gods, you own the minds of men. Even modern science, with all its pride, mirrors this principle and doesn't even realize it. Fractals. Holograms. Recursion. DNA strands spiraling like galaxies. That's not coincidence. That's structure. That's design. And that design is you. You are not in the universe. You are the universe, fragmented, encoded, experiencing itself through your eyes. Why do you think ancient temples mapped the stars? Why did Egyptian priests spend their lives aligning stone with sky? Because they knew. As above, so below wasn't metaphor. It was instruction. Want to unlock the divine? Start within. Want to command heaven? Master earth. But no one told you that. They taught you to pray up, to hope for rescue, to wait for salvation to descend from above. That's manipulation. That's inversion. The real power isn't up there. It's mirrored in you. Right now. In your heartbeat. In your breath. In your thoughts. In your rage. In your passion. In your dreams. There's no savior coming. There's no judgment day. There's only reflection. Correspondence. Recurrence. You think this phrase just popped up out of nowhere? You think as above, so below was born in a yoga studio or fell out of a meme account? Wrong. This thing comes from a bloodline of suppressed knowledge, a lineage of fire. You want to know where it came from. You want the raw history, not the sanitized Wikipedia version. Then buckle up, because we're going straight into the origin vault, no filters, no fluff. Let's talk about Hermes Trismegistus. Not one man. Not a myth. A fusion. A composite entity stitched together by time and secrecy. Part Egyptian god Thoth. Part Greek god Hermes. Part divine Hacker. The ancients called him thrice great because once wasn't enough. This being didn't write fairy tales. He left behind encryption. Symbolic algorithms. And at the core of it? The Emerald Tablet. No, it's not a literal green stone floating in a museum somewhere. It's a slab of mystery. A compressed file of metaphysical lore smuggled across empires, buried under translations, rituals, and lies. The earliest versions of this thing were locked in Arabic alchemical manuscripts. Then the Latin scholars of medieval Europe got their hands on it, and everything went underground. They didn't publish it. They encoded it. Because it's not meant for everyone. This text was never mass-produced. It was passed like a weapon. Whispered. Memorized. Hidden. The church couldn't handle it. Neither could the kings. Because it didn't serve empire. It didn't bow to hierarchy. It didn't fit in theology. It annihilated the middleman between human and divine. And right there, burned into the tablet, carved into legacy, was the phrase, "That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above." That's the uncut version. Pure. Uncensored. It wasn't just about stars and dirt. It was the spine of the whole Hermetic system. And Hermeticism? That's the root OS of Western esotericism. You like tarot? Astrology? Alchemy? Ritual magic? Every single one of those is just an app running on Hermetic code. And what does that code say? Power isn't given. It's remembered. You don't climb up to heaven. You mirror it. You don't need priests. You need perception. You don't wait for revelation. You realize. The Hermetics weren't dreamers. They were engineers of consciousness. And their tools weren't crucifixes or commandments. They used symbols, ratios, geometry, vibration. And guess what held it all together? That one phrase. That one sentence that exposed the divine symmetry of all things. But here's where it gets dirtier. Rome didn't like it. The empire wasn't built on truth. It was built on obedience. So when Hermetic texts started circulating, they got labeled pagan poison. Libraries burned. Scribes were executed. The Emerald Tablet disappeared from public view. But it didn't vanish. It mutated. It went viral underground. Alchemists picked it up. Not the fantasy kind. Real ones. Lab coats before lab coats were a thing. They weren't just trying to turn lead into gold. That's the distraction. They were trying to transmute the soul. Solve the cosmic equation. And guess what the formula started with? Yeah. As above, so below. This phrase was their North Star. It was the lens they used to read the universe. They saw spirit and matter as two faces of the same force. light bending into density, ideas becoming iron, dreams becoming DNA. And here's the part they never teach: this knowledge didn't just survive. It infiltrated secret societies, Masonic lodges, Rosicrucians, Templars. These weren't weekend clubs for bored elites. These were information vaults, guardians of forbidden insight. And they didn't just preserve the phrase, they weaponized it. Used it in architecture, in initiation rites, in the design of cities and cathedrals. They built stone versions of the Emerald Tablet in plain sight, right under your nose. Why do you think Washington, D.C. is laid out like a magical grid? Why is St. Peter's Basilica structured like a solar temple? Why are entire national currencies covered in occult symbols? Because they understood, control the above, the symbols, the structures, the archetypes, and you manipulate the below, the people, the laws, the minds. That's not conspiracy. That's design. As above, so below wasn't some footnote in a forgotten scroll. It became the architecture of power. It became the secret handshake of shadow elites. And while you were taught to kneel and obey, they were using it to encode control into the physical world. And you never saw it coming. Because the phrase never left. It just got diluted, turned into wallpaper for self-help books, mutated into meaningless slogans, watered down until no one could see that it once cracked the wall between dimensions. The principle of correspondence, this is where everything starts making sense and stops being comfortable. It's the second Hermetic law, but it's the first one that hits you in the gut. Because this is the one that strips the illusion of separation between what you think is out there and what's going on in here. This isn't poetry. It's structure. The law that says everything operates through reflection, resonance, and recursion. The same pattern repeating through every level of existence, from the atom to the cosmos, from your heartbeat to the movement of galaxies. Let's break this without sugarcoating it. When Hermetic philosophers said, as above, so below, they weren't talking about some symbolic connection. They meant literal correspondence. Reality is recursive. Every scale mirrors every other scale. The laws governing the heavens are the same laws that shape your nervous system. The geometry of the universe is encoded in your cells. It's the same blueprint unfolding in different magnitudes. You are not an isolated creature trying to reach the stars, you're the star condensed into human form. You want proof? Look at the structure of a spiral galaxy and compare it to the pattern of a hurricane. Same rotation. Same flow. Look at neurons and cosmic filaments. The network that connects galaxies across billions of light years looks identical to the neural web inside your brain. It's not coincidence. It's correspondence. The macro and the micro are reflections, constantly folding into each other. You are made of the same data that the universe is written in. The Hermeticists understood this long before science pretended to discover it. They knew reality wasn't built in layers stacked on top of each other. It was a hologram, each fragment containing the code of the whole. That's what the principle of correspondence means. The universe isn't something you look at. It's something you echo. And the deeper you look inward, the deeper you penetrate outward. It's a loop. A mirrored system where every action reverberates infinitely across scales. This is why the ancients could predict cosmic phenomena through ritual, why alchemists claimed they could influence the stars by transforming matter on their tables. They weren't delusional, they were operating on correspondence. Change one end of the pattern, and the other shifts in response. That's why the Emerald Tablet said, it accomplishes miracles of one thing. Because if you manipulate the reflection correctly, you're manipulating the source itself. You ever wonder why sacred geometry appears in every ancient culture? Pyramids, mandalas, ziggurats, spirals, golden ratios? They're not decorations. They're correspondence diagrams. Each one an attempt to map how divine order expresses itself across all planes, mental, material, spiritual. The ancients built their temples using cosmic math because they understood that structure attracts energy. You align form with law, and you create resonance between dimensions. It's not faith. It's physics. That's what the Hermeticists were doing, reverse engineering creation. They didn't care about worship, they cared about pattern. Every god, every symbol, every ritual was a coordinate in a universal code. They saw divinity not as something distant but as a system that could be mirrored, replicated, reactivated. The gods were archetypes, frequencies in the cosmic field, and human consciousness was the receiver. You tune yourself correctly, and you transmit on divine bandwidth. That's correspondence. Now here's the brutal part. The principle of correspondence kills the idea of coincidence. Nothing happens in isolation. Everything is connected through invisible threads of structure. Your thoughts echo through the matrix of reality, just like planetary orbits echo the laws of vibration and polarity. The same laws that move stars move you. When something shifts in one realm, it ripples through all others. The spiritual, the mental, the physical, they are not separate layers. They're overlapping fields vibrating in sync. This is why symbols work. Why rituals matter. Why empires rise and fall in rhythm with celestial cycles. Because correspondence isn't superstition, it's synchronization. The priest raises his hand in a gesture that mirrors cosmic law. The architect builds a cathedral with proportions that mirror the human body. The magician draws a sigil based on planetary alignments. They're all performing one act, linking the above and below into a feedback loop. Power doesn't move in straight lines, it circulates through mirrored levels of existence. The Kybalion called this planes of manifestation, not separate worlds, but frequencies of the same field. What you do in one plane reverberates through the rest. That's why Hermeticism never separated science from magic. Because magic is just applied correspondence, engineering the invisible architecture of the real. And it's not just spiritual. Look at biology. DNA spirals like galaxies. The Fibonacci sequence builds everything from sunflowers to hurricanes to seashells. Reality copies itself endlessly, repeating structure through matter, mind, and motion. That's not chaos. That's recursion. You're standing inside a self-replicating fractal, where the divine formula keeps replaying itself, layer after layer, through infinity. This principle also explains why power structures mimic cosmic hierarchies. Kings crowned under domes painted with stars. Thrones placed on high platforms. Nations arranged around sacred centers. Every system of rule has always mirrored heaven because rulers understood this. If you copy the structure of the divine, you legitimize your control. You become a reflection of cosmic law, whether you deserve it or not. Everything in Hermetic thought hinges on this. Correspondence is causality disguised as symmetry. The smallest motion can echo through infinite planes. The entire mechanism of manifestation is a mirror cascade. What you call creation is the universe watching itself from every angle. You're not watching the stars are watching themselves through your eyes. You've seen it 1,000 times and never asked why. The statue with one hand pointing up and one hand pointing down. The magician on the tarot card raising a wand to the sky while his other hand points to the earth. The goat-headed Baphomet sitting in perfect composure, fingers raised above and below. Every one of them repeating the same gesture, locked in the same pose, screaming the same message, and no one told you what it actually meant. Because it wasn't a pose. It was a transmission. The iconography isn't random. It's coded instruction. And that hand gesture? That's not some edgy occult flair. That's the visual embodiment of as above, so below. That's correspondence made flesh. And it appears in every serious occult system for a reason. Because it's not just saying there's a connection. It's saying this is how you command it. The magician doesn't pray. He aligns. He links heaven and earth through his body. That's not symbolic. That's architecture. His spine is the axis. His gesture is the circuit. The human body becomes the bridge between planes. That's what this whole system is built on. You're the conduit. You're the antenna. And those poses are how you tune the damn frequency. Look at how these symbols were positioned across cultures. Ancient Egyptian deities with one hand stretched upward to Ra and the other to the Nile. Hindu mudras that balance energy flows between sky and ground. Buddhist iconography with fingers forming cosmic loops. Masonic rituals with mirrored gestures above and below. The message is consistent across continents and centuries. Balance is not peace. It's voltage, polarity, tension between realms. And the one who masters it becomes the link. The magician isn't casting spells. He's conducting reality. You think that as above, so below phrase is deep? The pose is deeper. It's living geometry. It's the human form reenacting cosmic law. The arm reaching up symbolizes reception, pulling down from the higher realm. The arm pointing down signals projection, delivering that force into matter. The body becomes the vertical axis, the channel where divine intention collapses into physical manifestation. That's why it shows up in initiation rites, altar designs, temple layouts. Not because it looks good, but because it works. It's not aesthetic. It's a trigger. It's how the hermetic current gets activated. You're not just reciting philosophy. You're embodying it. You're drawing energy through your nervous system into the world. The Baphomet image? People love to hate it because it looks demonic. But they miss the point entirely. That image wasn't created to scare you. It was designed to teach you. It compresses 100 esoteric laws into one figure. Masculine and feminine. Light and dark. Winged and rooted. Above and below. All reconciled in a single frame. That's what power looks like when it's balanced and conscious. And that dual-fingered gesture? That's the core. Because Baphomet doesn't just sit there. He functions. He operates as the diagram of how energy flows through the planes. It's an occult map, and the magician is the compass. Let's talk architecture. These poses aren't limited to art. They were embedded into stone. Gothic cathedrals mirror stellar constellations. Domes echo celestial vaults. Towers point to the heavens, foundations anchored into earth. The entire layout screams as above, so below in 3 dimensions. Look at the Vatican. Look at the Capitol. Look at every ancient temple aligned with solstices and stars. They're not just buildings. They're energy machines, built to reflect the structure of the cosmos into terrestrial space. The magician's gesture is the human-sized version of that same principle. Instead of stone and mortar, it uses blood and bone. Instead of aligning planets and temples, it aligns breath and intent. That's why these images weren't casual, they were instructional blueprints. They told initiates how to become the axis. Not to worship from below, not to beg from above, but to stand in the middle and transmit. But here's what they don't want you to realize. All this symbolism wasn't reserved for the elite. It was stolen by them. Gate-kept. Ritualized beyond recognition. The gesture became locked behind robes and titles and secret handshakes. But it started as something primal, direct access to cosmic flow through your own damn body. You don't need a temple. You are the temple. The moment you strike that pose with full intent, you become the equation, as above, so below, so within, so without. And that's dangerous. Because once you understand the mechanics of correspondence in physical form, once you realize that you're the transmitter, not just the receiver, then everything changes. You're not a bystander. You're the operator. The magician card isn't a character. It's a mirror. It's showing you your role. The wand in the air. The finger to the dirt. Tools laid out on the altar, sword, cup, wand, pentacle, all elements, all forces, waiting for activation. This is where it stops being symbolic and starts getting surgical. You think as above, so below is a cosmic theory? It's a method. It's practical tech. It's alchemy, real alchemy, Not fairy tale potion mixing, but internal transmutation. Psychological engineering. Consciousness modification. This isn't about belief. This is about combustion. Controlled collapse of your lower self to activate the higher code embedded inside your being. You've heard of the magnum opus? The great work? That wasn't about gold. That was the distraction. The true alchemists weren't chasing metals, they were cracking the human operating system. Nigredo, albedo, citrinitas, rubedo. For phases. For initiatory deaths. Burn, dissolve, illuminate, and crystallize. And you go through it inside yourself. Every internal breakdown, every dark night of the soul, every purge and rewrite, that's Nigredo. That's phase 1. Shadow work isn't spiritual fluff. It's spiritual demolition. You want to access the divine? You better bleed for it. You better rip out every false identity you've been programmed with. Because that's what the first stage demands. Destruction. Breakdown. Rot. Nigredo is decay on purpose. It's when the illusion finally starts to smell. The false self decomposes and the system scrambles. That's not a mental breakdown, that's a chemical initiation. You're being prepped for reconstruction. Then comes albedo, purification. After the chaos clears, you're left with raw substance. No ego. No titles. No stories. Just essence. The alchemists symbolized this with white. Snow. Moonlight. It's not peace. It's silence. Dead silence. And most people can't handle it. They crave identity. They crave noise. But if you stay in the white long enough, something starts to shimmer under the surface. The blueprint activates. Next phase, citrinitas, illumination. This is where the higher fire enters. The inner gold starts rising. Not because you earned it, because now there's space for it. The clutter is gone. The egos did. The vessel is clean. The light has room to move. You start seeing symbols everywhere. Patterns explode into consciousness. Dreams sharpen into messages. You're not thinking, you're receiving. That's why this phase freaked out the church. It made prophets, not followers. And finally, rubedo, the reddening. Integration. This is the stage they never talk about because it's too dangerous. You fuse the opposites. You're no longer seeking the light. You are the light in flesh. Fire and flesh merged. Spirit encoded into matter, consciously. That's the philosopher's stone. Not an object. A state. Not something you find. Something you become. The alchemists never drew this out of thin air. They weren't guessing. They were working off maps, internal maps. Everything they learned came from corresponding the outer lab with the inner lab. That's as above, so below in practice. They'd burn metals and watch what it did to the psyche. They distill liquids and monitor the dreamscape. It was one operation, mirrored on 2 levels. Every alembic, every crucible, every furnace, they weren't just tools. They were mirrors of the soul. That's why the old labs were built like temples. Every object had a symbolic twin. Every fire lit was also lit inside the self. And when the outer work failed, it meant the inner work wasn't aligned. You couldn't fake it. You couldn't skip steps. The universe called your bluff every time. If your soul wasn't melting, nothing else was either. Modern science hijacked the language and gutted the meaning. Chemistry comes from Chemia, Egypt. The Black Land. The hidden work. Spiritual technology, stripped of spirit, sold back as academic data. They removed the operator. Made it all external. Separated the matter from the mind. That was the great theft. Now everyone thinks alchemy is superstition when it was the most advanced system of initiation this planet has ever seen. You think Jung made up shadow work? He stole it from alchemy. You think ego death came from psychedelics? It came from alchemy. You think inner child healing is new? Albedo. Every self-help guru out here is selling watered-down fragments of hermetic transformation while pretending it's innovation. It's not. It's repackaged ritual. You ever wonder why the elite still use alchemical symbols in their logos, their architecture, their media? Because they never stopped using it. They just stopped teaching it. Now it's hidden in plain sight. The phoenix, the Ouroboros, the cube, the lion, the dragon, all operational symbols. Each one tied to a phase of internal transmutation. Not decoration. Direction. Even the so-called devil horns they throw up in Hollywood? Look deeper. That's not rebellion. That's invocation. That's energy alignment. As above, so below. Finger to sky, finger to earth. Every pop concert is a ritual, but no one's watching the choreography. The gestures are there. The colors. The phase sequences. The inversion. Because the people who understand this system are still running it. And the people who don't are just fuel. You ever wonder why this phrase, as above, so below, keeps showing up in the wrong hands? Why the same ancient system that was supposed to liberate consciousness is now being used to engineer control? Because the ones pulling the strings? They didn't forget the law, they weaponized it. This isn't just about energy and symbolism anymore. It's about surveillance, system design, predictive modeling. You think AI, social media, big data, and global networks are tools for convenience. They're planetary-level correspondence engines. They are mapping your thoughts, your patterns, your desires, and reflecting them back at you. Every click, every search, every fear, mirrored, amplified, reinforced. That's as above, so below in its dark form. Not cosmic alignment. Synthetic recursion. The spiritual law inverted into control code. The Hermeticists used this law to synchronize with nature. Modern empires use it to simulate nature, to trap you in algorithmic loops. You see the stars in the sky? They used to represent divine order. Now they've replaced them with satellites. Real-time eyes on everything below. As above has become literal. Surveillance grids above, echo chambers below. You think you're living in a digital society? You're living in a mirrored hive. One designed to extract, condition, reshape. Reflection used not for awakening, but for obedience. And here's the kicker. They don't need to force you. You volunteer. You perform. You curate your digital persona. You manifest your preferences. You build the cage with every post, every share, every selfie. The correspondence works both ways. Your inner self shapes your digital reality, and then your digital reflection starts feeding back into your inner self. Loop complete. That's cybernetic hermeticism. Ritual replaced with algorithm. Magic replaced with metrics. But it doesn't stop at tech. Let's talk power structures. Why do governments mirror corporations? Why do churches mirror courts? Why do presidents stand beneath domes that echo solar disks? Because control is designed to mirror the divine hierarchy. But instead of connecting you to source, it reroutes the current. It plugs you into a closed system where the top feeds on the bottom and calls it order. That's the darker use of correspondence, constructing a false above to justify domination of the below. Why do you think world leaders gather under pyramids and obelisks and planetary alignments? They're not just playing dress-up. They are mimicking the old rituals, copying the cosmic structures. Because if you simulate the symbols of the divine, you don't have to earn power. You can fabricate it. Artificial light, artificial gods, artificial law, the illusion of heaven above projected by those who control the projection system. Even the entertainment industry plays its part. Every stage is a temple. Every tour is a rite. Watch closely: ascension themes, stars above, chaos below. Sacrifice, rebirth, God-complex narratives loop through every music video and movie. And the audience? You're not just watching. You're participating. You chant. You repeat. You internalize. The spell is cast through repetition and rhythm. That's not entertainment. That's mass ritual. And they don't hide it. They mock you with it. One hand up, one hand down. Every time. It's in your music, your media, your monuments. Because the law works whether you believe in it or not. The symbols still function. The gestures still channel. Energy flows where form is mirrored. And it's not just the West. This is global. Pyramids on every continent. Temples built to mirror celestial configurations from Egypt to Angkor to Teotihuacan. The same law. The same geometry. The same secret. Rewritten, corrupted, repeated. Now you start to see why this phrase had to be diluted. Why it was turned into a t-shirt slogan. Because in its pure form, it unlocks too much. But inverted, distorted, it becomes the perfect trap. A loop you can't see. A mirror maze with no exit. A correspondent spell that reflects false heavens into your mind until you forget what the real one even looked like. That's the game. Inversion. They didn't throw out the law. They flipped it. Above still mirrors below. But now they control the image above. And you? You're left reacting to your own reflection, thinking it's reality. That's the final layer of control. And if you've made it this far, you already know there's no turning back. Thank you for watching until the end. You're not here by accident. You saw through the surface. You followed the signal. And now that the mirror is cracked, what you do next is entirely in your hands.